All right, let's unpack this deep dive. Looks like we've got quizzes, lesson plans, and a whole lot more, all about the Whomping Willow. That's Chapter 5 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
It's an educator's dream, really.
Oh!
How so? Well, you've got this wild adventure, a flying car, but underneath it all, Rowling's tackling some pretty big themes. Responsibility, the allure of breaking the rules, the consequences that come with it. It's all there.
So there's more to this chapter than meets the eye.
Absolutely. So much to unpack.
All right, I'm hooked. Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, let's start with the setting. The chapter opens with Harry at the Weasleys' home, the Burrow, and it's such a contrast to the Dursleys.
Right. It's warm, welcoming, chaotic even.
Exactly, and that's not just background noise, it's crucial for understanding Harry's state of mind. He's desperate to belong, and Hogwarts is that place for him. But it also makes him more likely to take risks, especially to avoid going back to Privet Drive.
You're saying this early scene is key to understanding why Harry makes the choices he does later.
Exactly. Rowling's subtly setting the stage. And speaking of setting the stage, let's talk about the Weasleys' departure. It's pure comedic chaos. A crammed car, forgotten items, Mr. Weasley and his love for muddle contractions.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It is. But it's not just for laughs.
There's a deeper layer to all the mayhem.
Oh, for sure. Think about it. Mr. Weasley, a ministry employee, enchanted with muggle technology. He's modifying a car, potentially breaking wizarding law.
So it's more than just a quirky dad moment.
Right. It foreshadows this larger conflict between the magical and muggle worlds. I mean, how much can wizards interact with the muggle world without compromising their own?
Yeah.
Can these two worlds truly coexist?
Big question.
And perfect for classroom discussions, we would say.
Absolutely. Makes you think about those boundaries, the consequences of crossing them.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's get to Harry and Ron missing the Hogwarts Express. Bad luck. Or is there something more at play here?
Well, the text is a bit ambiguous, but it definitely adds to the suspense. Why can't they get through the barrier? Is it magical interference? Rowling leaves it open to interpretation, encouraging us to think critically about it.
It's like a puzzle.
Exactly. And of course, this leads them to a rather audacious plan.
Flying the car to Hogwarts.
You got it. But even before they leave, they forget a bunch of things.
Oh, right. Like the whole fiasco with the vanishing cabinet and whatnot.
Yep, and that seemingly small detail highlights a crucial theme here, the consequences of even the smallest oversights. It's a chain reaction. One forgotten item leads to another, culminating in a missed train and a very impulsive decision.
So it's more than just a flying car joyride.
Right, it's about responsibility, planning, thinking things through.
Big lessons for young wizards and, well, everyone, really.
Absolutely. And the flight itself, oh, it's brilliantly described. The exhilaration, the freedom. It's like they're in a dream.
But Rowling cleverly drops those hints of danger along the way.
She does. The faulty invisibility booster, the near miss with the airplane, the fuel gauge slowly dropping.
So it's not just a celebration of breaking the rules. There's a cautionary tale woven in there, too.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so rich for discussion. Do the ends justify the means? How much risk is too much?
Heavy stuff for a kid's book.
That's Rowling for you. And then, of course, comes the crash.
Straight into the Whomping Willow. And it's not just any old tree, is it?
Oh, no. The Whomping Willow is a force of nature, a symbol of untamed magic. It reminds us that magic can be dangerous, unpredictable.
Right. And the damage to the car, Ron's broken wand, it's all a consequence of their actions.
Exactly. It's a physical manifestation of the mess they've created. And now they've got to face the music.
And who better to deliver the scolding than Severus Snape?
Oh, he's practically giddy at the thought of punishing them, especially Harry.
I mean, Snape's always had it out for Harry.
Well, it does make you wonder about Snape's character, doesn't it? Is it just duty, or is there something more there?
Yeah.
And his reaction, it's a stark contrast to McGonagall.
Right. She's furious, but she's also fair. Detention instead of expulsion.
Exactly. She's firm but understanding. Then there's Dumbledore.
Ah, Dumbledore. Always the voice of reason.
He takes a different approach altogether. He's disappointed, sure, but understanding, too. He doesn't minimize what they did, but he does give them a chance to redeem themselves.
So it's about balance, right? Discipline and compassion.
Exactly. It's something to consider, isn't it? What makes a good leader? How do you balance rules with understanding?
Big questions, yet again.
And then we see the reactions of their fellow Gryffindors. Most of them, they see Harry and Ron as heroes. Daring, rebellious.
Except for Hermione and Percy, of course.
Always the voice of reason, those two. They remind us that rule breaking, no matter how exciting, has its downsides.
It's a classic dilemma, isn't it? The allure of rebellion versus playing by the rules.
It is, and it's something we all grapple with, in one way or another. Why are some so quick to celebrate rule breaking? Why do others stay cautious?
It's like Rowling packed an entire philosophy lesson into this one chapter.
She really did. This chapter, it's an invitation to think about morality, consequences, different perspectives.
It's amazing how much depth she's managed to pack into a story about a flying car.
Right. And we're just getting started.
I can't wait to see what else we uncover.
And the best part is, every bit of it, the characters, the plot, that symbolism, it's all ripe for lesson planning. You can explore character motivation, break down plot structure, even delve into the symbolism of the Whomping Willow itself.
Okay, now I'm really seeing the potential. But how does a teacher actually put all of this into practice? Like, what are some concrete strategies?
Well, one approach is role-playing. Imagine students stepping into the shoes of Harry, Ron, even Snape or the Whomping Willow.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It encourages empathy, allows them to see the same event from different perspectives.
So they're not just understanding the story, they're living it, feeling those emotions.
Exactly, and it opens up all sorts of discussions.
Mhm.
Decision-making, consequences, individual responsibility. You could even have them rewrite the scene, imagine alternative choices.
So they get to be creative while staying grounded in the text. I love that.
Another idea is to use this chapter to explore the rules and regulations of the wizarding world. Why are certain rules in place? What happens when they're broken?
It's like a microcosm of our own society, isn't it? We have laws, consequences, but there's always that debate about fairness, reform, freedom versus order.
Precisely. And this chapter, it's the perfect way to dive into those bigger conversations. Have students research the Ministry of Magic, analyze Hogwarts rules, even create their own set of magical laws.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And of course, you can't talk about this chapter without addressing the magical and muggle worlds. It's woven throughout the story.
From Mr. Weasley's fascination with Muggle tech to that Evening Prophet article about the flying car.
Right. Rowling keeps reminding us of that delicate balance between those two worlds.
And don't forget the secrecy surrounding Platform 9 3/4 factories. It's a physical representation of that separation.
A reminder that magic exists hidden in plain sight. It's a chance to explore themes of identity, belonging, even navigating different cultures. You could even have students compare transportation in both worlds.
Like, why a broomstick when you could have a car?
Exactly. Simple question, but it leads to some fascinating discussions. And don't underestimate the power of creative writing. Newspaper article from a Muggle perspective, seeing the flying car. Or a letter from Harry and Ron to the Whomping Willow apologizing for the damage.
I love it. They get to express those themes in their own way.
And the chapter structure itself is a lesson. Rowling's a master storyteller. That buildup of suspense, missing the train, the thrill of the flight, then bam, the crash.
A roller coaster of emotion.
Keeps you hooked. And that's intentional. Analyzing the chapter's structure, that's a valuable lesson in itself. Mapping out plot points, identifying turning points.
So it's not just about entertainment, it's about the craft of storytelling.
Exactly. And the imagery, the Whomping Willow, all those thrashing branches, it's ominous. It's not just an obstacle, it's symbolic, this untamed magical force.
A reminder that even in a world of wonder, there are things you can't control.
Right. And then there's the flying car. Freedom, adventure, but also recklessness, disregard for rules.
Powerful visual for sure.
And the broken wand. What could that symbolize? Loss of control, consequences. It's open to interpretation.
It's like a puzzle with multiple solutions. And that's what makes it so interesting, right?
It's about critical thinking, evidence-based arguments, appreciating that there isn't always one right answer.
Okay, so all of this sounds amazing. But what are some challenges teachers might face? I mean, not all students have read the books or seen the films.
That's a valid point. Providing some context can help. A quick summary, character descriptions, maybe a film clip, but the core themes are universal. Responsibility, consequences, the temptation to break the rules, those resonate with everyone.
And keeping students engaged in these discussions, that can be tough too. How do you make it relevant? Spark that enthusiasm.
It takes creativity. Ask open-ended questions. Have you ever felt pressured to break a rule? What were the consequences? What would you have done differently? That helps bridge the gap between fiction and their own lives.
And when it comes to sensitive topics like rule breaking and consequences, how do you approach those in a constructive way?
It's about framing the discussion to encourage empathy and critical thinking. Don't just condemn Harry and Ron. Explore their situation. Why did they do it? What pressures were they facing? What consequences did they not consider?
It's about understanding human behavior, those gray areas where right and wrong aren't so clear-cut.
Exactly. And that's a valuable lesson, right? One that goes beyond the classroom. It's about giving students the tools to navigate the real world.
And to think, all this from one chapter in a children's book.
That's the magic of great literature, isn't it? It entertains, inspires, and offers endless opportunities for learning.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface here, and look at all the layers of meaning and teaching potential we've uncovered already.
That's the exciting part. Every detail, every line, every image, it all adds up to something bigger. The key is knowing how to bring it all to life for students.
Okay, so let's get even more specific. What moments in this chapter can teachers really focus on?
Well, even that chaotic breakfast scene at the Burrow, it's gold, I tell you. It's funny, sure, but it subtly sets up those themes of planning and responsibility.
I mean, like all the forgotten items, Mr. Weasley nearly taking a tumble with Ginny's trunk.
Exactly. It's classic Rowling, but it's also a perfect way to introduce the idea of organization, time management, those crucial skills for success.
So instead of just laughing at the Weasleys, teachers can use that to talk about planning consequences.
Absolutely. Have students create packing lists for Hogwarts. What's essential? How would they organize? It's fun, relatable, and reinforces those skills.
And then there's that moment when they miss the train. Their solution, well, it's bold.
To say the least. Flying the car. Reckless, even. But it's a brilliant example of problem solving, even if the solution is a bit, flawed. Talk about critical thinking with your students. What were the risks, the alternatives? Was there a better way?
So it's not just about labeling it a bad decision, but analyzing the process.
Exactly. Every choice has consequences, good and bad. Exploring those consequences in this safe, fictional world, it helps them make better choices in their own lives.
This chapter is also great for perspective taking. Ron, he's desperate not to let his parents down, so he sees that risk as necessary. But from the outside, it's breaking the law, plain and simple.
That clash of perspectives is perfect for the classroom. Have them consider different viewpoints. Harry, Ron, their parents, McGonagall, even the ministry officials cleaning up the mess.
It's about recognizing that there isn't always one right answer.
Exactly. Understanding different viewpoints, that's key for navigating life's tricky situations.
And then, of course, there's the flight. The freedom, the adventure, it's exhilarating.
Rowling's descriptions are so vivid, you feel like you're right there with them.
But then she throws in those subtle hints of danger. The booster, the near miss with the plane.
It's like a reminder, even the most thrilling experiences can have unintended consequences. It's not about glorifying recklessness, but acknowledging the allure of risk while still emphasizing safety and responsibility.
You could use this to talk about risk assessment. What are the potential benefits and downsides? How do we weigh those things to make good choices?
Right, and the crash, well, that's the ultimate consequence, isn't it? It's dramatic, a real wake-up call. Actions have consequences, even in a world of magic.
The damaged car, the broken wand, they're hurt. It's a physical reminder that they went too far.
And that's where the discussion can go deeper than just right and wrong. It's about accountability. Did they deserve punishment? Was it fair? What were the long-term impacts?
It's like Rowling showing us, not telling us. No preaching about responsibility, just letting the consequences play out.
Exactly, and that's a great model for teaching. Create experiences, not lectures. Let them learn through discussion, role-playing, writing.
And look at the adults. Snape, he's all about punishment. But Dumbledore, he offers understanding, a second chance.
Such a contrast. A great opportunity to talk about leadership. What makes a good leader? How do you balance justice and compassion? Questions that matter, even outside Hogwarts.
And even their classmates' reactions. It adds another layer.
Mm-hmm.
Most see Harry and Ron as heroes, but Hermione and Percy, not so much.
Right. Shows that even within a group, there are different views on breaking the rules. This is where you can talk about peer pressure, social norms, the courage to stand by your convictions.
Even if it means being unpopular.
Exactly. What might seem like a harmless adventure to some can have real consequences for others.
And that brings us to the end. They're back at Hogwarts, but there's that lingering tension. They got away with it, but...
At what cost? It's brilliant how Rowling leaves us with that feeling.
It hints at those future challenges, future consequences.
And that's the big takeaway from The Whomping Willow. Every choice, no matter how small, has an impact. It affects us and the people around us.
It's more than just a story. It's a way to teach about responsibility, consequences, perspective taking, and navigating that gray area between right and wrong.
It's about giving students the tools they need to make good choices, to become thoughtful, engaged individuals.
So what's the one thing you hope educators take away from our deep dive into the Whomping Willow?
Embrace the complexity. Don't be afraid of those tough questions. Use this chapter to spark real discussions, ones that challenge your students to think critically, to empathize, to consider the consequences of their actions.
It's about those magical lessons extending beyond the book and into the real world.
Exactly. That's the power of great stories. They can transform, inspire, and make a lasting impact.
Well, on that note, I'd say we've reached a pretty magical conclusion ourselves. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. It's been eye-opening.
The pleasure was all mine.